Easter Island. Isolated in the Pacific Ocean, more than 2,000 miles west of Chile, this tiny landmass is home to nearly 900 monolithic stone statues.
On Easter Island, we have these huge heads and torsos that are carved out of the volcanic rock. They are called the Moai. Some of them that have been erected are 30 feet or so tall, weighing up to 75 tons.
You don't realize that they're really buried right up to their chest, and that these statues are 2 or 3 times as large as we can see, because most of them is below ground. Many of the statues are oftentimes sort of sideways, looking up.
They look inward toward the center of the island. They also seem to look up toward the skies. So I think there's a deeper significance, and it has to do with the heavens. It has to do with things that were happening in the sky that were very important to the people, and that they are recording in these Moai and pointing to look upward. There's something going on there.
According to archaeologists, the native Polynesian inhabitants of Easter Island, known as the Rapa Nui people, constructed the Moai between the 12th and 18th centuries AD to honor their ancestors. But recent archaeological excavations have revealed that the figures were naturally buried over thousands of years, making them much older than originally believed.
From a geological perspective, to bury the Moai in 20 feet or more of sediment suggests that they are potentially thousands of years old, much older than traditional archaeologists have suggested.
The idea that they were built 1,000 or 1,500 or 700 years ago, not realistic. They were built much before that. It seemed that certain guests came, built them, and probably those heads do represent their original builders.
If the Moai are older than previously recognized, who really built them, and why? Considering the Rapa Nui are thought to have arrived on Easter Island no earlier than 300 AD, is it possible that celestial beings visited here thousands of years before? Ancient astronaut theorists believe these monolithic figures provide clues that the Rapa Nui ancestors may have actually been space travelers.
You cannot exclude that they are representation of celestial ancestors. We have all these statues, and the faces of the statues do not look like the Easter Islanders. The statues they created, they look like robots with long, narrow noses, with narrow lips. They have nothing which compares the Easter Island people. So what do they represent?
They are elongated heads. They are also these cone heads that we see at Nazca in Egypt and other areas of the world. Who are these people?
One possible explanation for why these heads of the Easter Island stone figures face the heavens is as if they were pointing a finger to their place of origin, but not because they forgot where they came from, but so the humans could remember.
In a remote area of the Pacific Ocean lies one of the most isolated yet inhabited locations in the world, Easter Island. Here, over 800 stone guardians called Moai stand watch over the island's coastline. But are they primitive native carvings or eerie portraits of alien visitors from thousands of years ago?
Whatever they were for, They're made to last for thousands of years. They're built out of blocks of stone that weigh many, many tons. Not only are people building structures out of these huge megalithic blocks of stone, but this was going on around the world. And yet, supposedly, it's just primitive people doing this for no really good reason, it would seem.
I think one of the things that comes into our considerations of what ancient cultures could have accomplished is whether they were able to write it down or not. We're very tied to, if we have evidence that they wrote down how they did it, then we believe we know how they did it. So Egypt, we have a lot more writings and drawings that show them building the pyramids, give us an idea of the technology. If you go somewhere like Easter Island, we don't have any real written evidence of what they did, and sometimes that leads us to question their innovativeness.
3,000 miles away, in the Republic of Bolivia, stonework exists which is amazingly similar to the statues of Easter Island. Tiwanaku is, in fact, so ancient that it defies modern dating techniques. It is estimated to be over 17,000 years old, perhaps the oldest city in the world. And somehow, the sculptures at Tiwanaku were constructed in the same style and with the same enigmatic expressions as their distant cousins on Easter Island.
A lot of the stuff with Tiwanaku you can see in earlier civilizations, all the way back, before into the centuries BC in Peru. You see some of these same patterns, some of the same iconography, imagery, and you can see the ancestry of this.
The Southeast Pacific Ocean. Rapa Nui, or Easter Island as it has become known, is one of the most remote places on the planet. The nearest inhabited island is 1,100 miles to the west, and its nearest continental country, Chile, is over 2,000 miles away. Scattered around the perimeter of the island, most with their backs to the sea, stand nearly 300 massive stone figures known as the Moai. Most are between 15 to 20 feet tall, but the tallest stands over 70 feet, and the heaviest weighs up to 165 tons.
Why did these people go to such great effort to build these giant statues? No one else in Polynesia was doing that. When you talk to the people of Easter Island today, the Rapa Nui people, they say that they were doing them to honor certain important ancestral ariki, or rulers. These moais are images of great ancestors.
Some ancient astronaut theorists have suggested that the Moai may have been erected by a lost race of giants that once inhabited the island. Interestingly, C.F. Barons, a member of the Dutch expedition team that first discovered the island in 1722, described some of the priestly class of inhabitants as Goliaths.
C.F. Barron reported that he saw giant people. Someone had rowed up to their boat that was some 15 foot tall. He really made a big deal of these giants on the island.
When the first explorers landed on Easter Island, what they found was that there were two types of people there. There were the short ears and the long ears. And the long ears were often described as giants, and they were a different race from the short ears. Presumably, they had these very, very long ears and earlobes. And they were the priestly caste. They were directing the creation and the movement of these statues around the island.
They were said to be so tall that each of the crew could walk under the legs of these giants. The sheer size of the megaliths on Easter Island do suggest they were made by giants.
There are legends all around the world linked with megalithic sites, which may give some clarity on who and how they actually built these sites.
Francis Mazière, a French ethnologist who conducted research on the island in 1963, recorded local legends that the first men to live on the island were of very large stature.
In his book, The Mysteries of Easter Island, Francis Mazière talks about that the first islanders of Easter Island allegedly were these tall, giant people.
There were inhabitants there that were 8 to 10, maybe even 12 feet high. And what do you automatically think of? Genesis in the Bible talks about how something that was non-human, perhaps angelic, perhaps extraterrestrial, saw the fair maidens of humans, had intercourse, and from that came the hybrids known as the giants of old.
Cusco, Peru. Here lie the impressive ruins of the ancient capital of the Inca Empire that thrived from the 13th to 15th century. Long suspected by ancient astronaut theorists to have been a place visited by extraterrestrial beings in the distant past, Cusco is considered to be an axis mundi, which in religion or mythology means the center or navel of the world.
They are very important sites, and quite often when you start looking into some sites like Cusco, Cusco literally means navel of the world. It was the navel of the empire of the Inca. So Cusco isn't unique. We really find naval sites everywhere, and the naval sites are quite often the most important sites of a culture. Jerusalem is one, the Giza Plateau is another.
World navels, because they lie along the Earth's magnetic grid, were places where the ancients created what could only be called heaven's gates, altars, places where human beings could communicate with otherworldly entities.
Evidence can also be found connecting Cusco with another world navel over 2,000 miles away in the South Pacific, Easter Island. Although mainstream historians and archaeologists believe the two places were never in contact in ancient times, Cusco and Easter Island feature strikingly similar styles of stonework, with colossal, multi-sided stones precisely fitted as if each joint was welded together.
The walls at Cusco are identical to the walls we can find in the base foundations of some of the Moais on Easter Island. And those two places are so far apart. I wonder, how was it done? Either the builders traveled from one place to the other, or the builders in each culture were visited by the same teachers. The teachers from the stars, extraterrestrials.
Diese Nabel der Welt.
These navels of the world might have been geodesic points, which you could use to navigate from the air. There are interesting accounts about this. For example, from Apollonius, who lived in Rome in 4 AD, that he descended with thunderbirds, that he had visited the city of the gods. There he was given talisman, which he was supposed to bury. There is a similar legend from Cusco. There, the children of the sun god are supposed to have plunged a rod into the earth. And there are similar legends on Easter Island.